Today in the EU, all the president's women, women candidates running for the next EU Commission. President Ursula von der Leyen is standing firm on the need for gender balance among the EU Commission nominees. So far, 9 women have been put forward as candidates, but the president hinted last week that the provisional number is now in double digits. Who are we missing, and which portfolios are female commissioners targeting? Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Giada Santana, and this is Today in the EU. In the past few weeks, concerns that the next commission would look like a boys' club have been expressed by both MEPs and media. But what's wrong with boys' clubs? To reply to this question, I'm joined in the studio by spokesperson of the European Institute for Gender Equality, Georgie Bradley. Hi, Georgie.
Hello, hi.
The debate at stake falls within the scope of gender mainstreaming, in this case, in politics. Why is it important to have a gender balanced European Commission?
So I think we need to take a more situational look at the state of gender equality. Remember that our societies are roughly made up of 50% women, 50% men. Yet, when it comes to EU decision making, it doesn't necessarily reflect this. Therefore, policy making misses out on capturing specific needs and experiences that affect women. With more women in political leadership, I think we stand a much greater chance at seeing our societies and our economies prosper, because then we'll have a huge benefit of diversity of perspectives to shape policies in a more inclusive way. According to our Gender Equality Index from last year's report, which is a tool that measures the state of gender equality at the EU level and member states, we are currently sitting at 70.2 points out of 100, where 100 reflects full gender equality. And we are more or less 60 years away from reaching this goal. And if you ask me, this is far too slow. We always call it a glacial pace. And I believe if we had more equal representation at the political level, we could get there faster.
At the same time, it could be argued that just hiring women in politics is not an insurance that they will defend women's rights. What's your institute's assessment of the last EU Commission's mandate in terms of gender sensitive policy?
So I can respond to that by let's looking at the outcomes of the previous mandate, where we saw big wins for gender equality. I mean, we've now got the directive on gender balance on corporate boards, where with legislative quotas, we're seeing more women in leadership roles. And then from there, we've also seen the adoption of the directive on pay transparency, which puts the very long-standing gender pay gap on the table with a view of making equal pay for equal work a reality. And then more recently, one of the biggest wins for gender equality was seeing the directive on combating violence against women and domestic violence adopted, which truly represents a milestone, not just for women's rights, but everyone's rights. But I think with the outcomes of this past elections, I think it proves that political will and commitment, while they can yield tangible progress, it means that we have to still focus on gender equality and power it up, which means more political will, more commitment, more actions. We need to see words lifted up from the paper and turned into action.
Right. So when we're looking at the future among the Youth Commission's next portfolios, which ones particularly affect gender dynamics and should therefore be informed by a gender sensitive approach? Because things stand right now, we're still not meeting the gender requirement rule.
So I think here it's important to highlight the fact that gender equality impacts all areas of life. Now, as far as the impact on gender equality for the next portfolio, I think we can anticipate there being a focus in areas such as defense, security, migration, border control, among other areas. And I don't think gender equality is necessarily a natural link, or it's not a natural link in people's minds in terms of the policy approach. But our research shows that when you address these issues by maintaining a gender perspective, it can result in better outcomes for everyone. So, for example, in the case of security, the policy area is not gender neutral. And that basically means that women and men, girls and and boys, they experience conflict, insecurity, and threats differently. And the impact of security policies is not equal across these groups. Therefore, policies, they need to recognize these differences to ensure that, as President von der Leyen has routinely said, every person in our union has the right to feel safe. So I think when you put actions, targets, measures in place, I would imagine you would see some measurable outcomes, but it requires political will and action and monitoring.
And political will is something Commissioner President von der Leyen has in abundance. Next, I'm joined in the studio by Nicoletta Ionta to give a look to women commissioner candidates, their ambitions, and skeletons in the closet. Hi, Nico.
Hi, Giada.
We're here to talk about the new College of Commissioners. This week is crucial in the process. Can you walk us through what the choreography looks like?
So Ursula von der Leyen is expected to present her commission team this week. More in particular, she's set to do it on Wednesday at 8 in the morning. And then the designated commissioners will have to go through parliament hearings that are set to take place in mid-October.
Mm-hmm. And this list has been particularly controversial.
I have, throughout my whole political life, been fighting for women having access to decision-making position and leading position. And my experience is that if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. It does not come naturally.
We have 9 names of women as candidates. Who are they?
Just to take a step back, in July, von der Leyen, after being reappointed as Commission President, she basically sent a letter to all the member states requesting them to put forward 2 names for the post of commissioners. Mm-hmm. So 1 man and 1 woman, basically. Not every single member state respected the request. Actually, now as you said, we have 9 names, but the situation was quite different just a couple of weeks ago, because the names that were put forward, the women that were put forward, they were just 4. So the deadline actually for the names to be submitted was set for Friday, 30 of August. And as the deadline approached, there were reports of pressures from the Commission because member states had either reconfirmed the previous commissioner or without proposing a woman's name, or they didn't propose a woman at all. So this led to some controversy regarding the gender balance of this new commissioner. If we consider that the outgoing commission included 13 women, the names that we're looking at now are 9 women out of 27 member states.
I'm sure that you've been reporting on this topic along the rest of the politics team, digging into different past experiences and competences of these candidates. Among the 9 names on the table, which ones are the most interesting?
One interesting profile is the Spanish designated commissioner, which is Sanchez's favorite, Teresa Ribera, from S&D, who's now Spain's current ecological transition minister. And people are kind of expecting her to be this political guardian of the Green Deal. And of course, because of that, her desired portfolio would be the Green Deal portfolio, energy and environment one. Another very interesting name that was proposed is Hadja Labib, which is the commissioner proposed for Belgium. Actually, Belgium was the only country that missed a deadline on Friday to propose a name, and we had a name just on Monday last week. So Belgium ended up proposing the name of Foreign Minister Hadja Labib, therefore not reconfirming Didier Reinders, Justice Commissioner now. Labib is part of the family of Renew Europe, and she is part of the party of Mouvement Réformateur in Belgium.
Yes, she was the last one to be nominated after the deadline. Since her candidacy, Labib has been at the center of critics, especially looking at the Belgian press. What have commentators observed?
In 2021, Labib visited Crimea and refused to condemn Russian annexation of Crimea. And later, as foreign minister, Labib expressed full support for Ukraine. But at the same time, she was also involved in a controversy over some visas that were issued to an Iranian delegation when she was foreign minister. And this Iranian delegation was attending the Brussels Urban Summit, and she faced scrutiny from the Belgian parliament, and there was a scandal. But in general, the criticism towards her is directed towards her basically Monday as Minister of Foreign Affairs in Belgium. What was interesting to see regarding her nomination is that Belgium was expected to reconfirm Commissioner Didier Reinders, who actually he expressed publicly his wish to be commissioner again. He was pretty vocal about it. That is why we had also some discussion on to why the name of Labib was proposed. Why her? And then the president of her party, Georges Boucher, said on Twitter that it was an attempt to propose a woman.
Yes, a so-called féminisation, as he called it. And Labib is not the only one under scrutiny for her political conduct. The Portuguese Marie-Louise Albuquerque is in a similar tough, if not tougher, spot.
Indeed. So as our colleague Barbara reported this week, there is some controversy related to Albuquerque. She's from EPP. Portugal nominated her. She's the former finance minister of Portugal. She was the member of the board for European subsidiary of the US firm. And she has much expertise, and that's on the economy. That's why probably Portugal is seeking to get like an economic portfolio. But what we're talking about is basically the fact that there is an ongoing investigation. There is an investigation over the acquisition of the TAP airline, and that happened under her watch as finance minister. And then another interesting personality that we're going to see is, of course, Kaja Kallas. It seems that her name was basically everywhere in the past year. I know we talked about it during the NATO guessing game when her name was proposed as Secretary General. She's quite an interesting personality. She served as Estonia's first female prime minister in 2021, before, of course, stepping down in June when she was appointed as High Representative.
Yes, I mean, it's crystal clear what mandate Kaja Kallas will be in charge of, very much less so for everybody else. What portfolios are nominated commissioners going after?
So, as I said, we are going to know more precisely the portfolios and the names on Wednesday. We can speculate, of course, based on the competences of the designated commissioners. As I said, Teresa Ribera is probably looking at the Green Deal portfolio, energy and environment related one. Dubravka Šuica from Croatia, who got reconfirmed as commissioner for Croatia. She's now commissioner for democracy and demography since 2019. Of course, like an enlargement portfolio would be a big win for her, but still there is much speculation on what she will get. And then Jessica Roswell from EPP. She is a designated name for Sweden. And we're probably looking at a portfolio that will involve competitiveness.
And the Finnish Henna Virkkunen has also been at the center of speculations.
Yes, Finnish candidate Virkkunen from EPP. She's a seasoned political figure. She, in fact, served 3 terms as an MEP in Brussels. She knows the city. She previously held national government roles in matters like education, public administration, and transport. Here in Brussels, she worked on the ITRE committee and then for the transport committee. She was also part of the inquiry into the Pegasus spyware. So we're probably looking at a portfolio that involves digital rights and cybersecurity.
Yes, and finally, last week at the Strategic Dialogue briefing, von der Leyen addressed the controversies regarding the list of commissioners. She said that for the moment, the number of women was in the double digits.
I think she was referring to herself as well, because if you consider we're talking about 9 names of women, 10 if you consider her, which is, of course, she's not just a commissioner president, but she is also the commissioner for Germany.
Still, do you think she has some names up her sleeve?
There are some reports that she's putting pressure on smaller countries to put forward a name. The deadline was 10 days ago. Just on Friday, Thomas Vesel, Slovenia's nominee for European Commissioner, has withdrawn his candidacy because of the pressure coming from Ursula von der Leyen. And the decision was announced on Friday. And of course, we are expecting that maybe a woman name will be put forward. I don't think we will see new names being proposed, as the deadline was already last week. And what we will probably see, and what we will have to keep an eye on, are the hearings and whether the commissioners that were designated will actually make it and how the parliament is going to vote. Because if those names end up getting burned by the parliament, then we will probably have to look out for, who these countries are going to propose. And then are they going to propose women, or are they going to put forward more male candidates? That's a question. And then that's something that we'll keep an eye on for, the next month, I guess.
And the next episode.
Oh, of course.
I'm Giada Santana, and this was Euractivist Today in the EU podcast. Visit Euractivist to stay on top of the latest news, sign up for our podcast newsletter, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite streaming platform. It will really help us spread the word about our work. This episode was produced by Miriam Sanz de Tejada and I. See you tomorrow. As part of our commitment to accuracy, inclusion, and transparency, Euractiv is part of the Trust Project.